Narayan students, I hope that you all are fine staying at your home. Students, we were studying chapter Deep Water, which is written by William Douglas. Till now, we have studied that how Douglas he started to gather confidence. So he paddled with his new water wings in the swimming pool, YMCA swimming pool. He tried to learn by imitating how the other boys used to do it. He practiced twice or thrice on different days. Somewhat he was gathering confidence. When he was gathering confidence, at that moment only, misadventure happened in the YMCA pool. One day, as he was all alone at the pool, he lacked courage to go in the pool all alone. So, he waited for others to come by the side of the pool. Soon, an 18 years old boy arrived. He had thick hair on chest, bulging muscles and strong physique. That boy tossed the author inside the pool. Douglas fell into the water in a sitting position. As he was entering in the water, he made a plan to save himself. So he went at once to the bottom. He was frightened, but not frightened out of wits. So he planned to make a big jump upward and come to the surface and paddle to the edge of the pool and save himself. Douglas's experience of the fall. He went down to the bottom. 9 feet appeared to him as if it was 90 feet. His lungs, they were filled with water and were ready to burst. When he hit the bottom, he summoned up all his strength and made a great spring upward. Thought of coming to the surface like a cork, but it happened contrary. He came up very slowly. He opened his eyes and saw only water. Now he made efforts to survive. Though he grew panicky, still he efforted to grab a rope, but his hands clutched only water. So now he felt suffocated. His eyes and nose came out of the water, but not his mouth. He kept on swallowing water and felt choked. His legs were stiff and rigid like any lifeless objects. He started his journey back to the bottom. Now once again, downward journey he started. He struck at the water, lost his breath. His lungs ached, head throbbed. He felt dizzy. But he still remembered the strategy to jump up. Now he felt completely terrified when he found water all around. A stark terror seized him. He was unable to scream, felt as if he was paralyzed. His heart and his pounding head made him feel that he was still alive. Now, author's effort to survive. So he was terrified, but he did not lose reason. He jumped up with all his strength, but did not succeed. Trembled with fright, his arms and legs did not move. Nothing happened, and now he went down for the third time. Now he lost all hope. He gave up all efforts to survive. Now he was feeling quite relaxed. When he went down third time, his fear and terror, they were all wiped out. No panic was there. He felt quiet and very peaceful. He felt drowsy and passed into oblivion. But he regained consciousness. When he regained consciousness, he found out that he was laying on his stomach beside the pool and was vomiting. The big bully said that he was simply fooling. Somebody said that to take him to the locker room. In this manner, the narrator, he escaped death. Effect of this unpleasant experience, it had a long lasting effect. The narrator, he walked home but was quite weak and shaking. He shook and cried when he lay down on the bed. He could not eat that very night, and a haunting fear was there with him for days together. Slightest exertion would make him upset. He would felt wobbly in the knees and sick to his stomach, feared water and avoided it. So now this much we studied. This handicap, I'm starting from page number 27, last 2 lines were left. This handicap stayed with me as the years rolled by, in canoes on marine lake fishing for landlocked salmon. Landlocked salmon is a variety of Atlantic fish. Canoes means it's a narrow boat with pointed ends. So now he is telling that this handicap, the handicap of fear of water, it stayed with the narrator as the years kept on going. In canoes on marine lake fishing for landlocked salmon, he missed all these things due to the handicap which he was having. Now if you turn to page number 28. Bass fishing in New Hampshire, trout fishing on the Deschutes and Metolius in Oregon. Here for bass is a black bass fish. So that fishing also he missed in New Hampshire. Trout fishing means the fish which lives in sweet water. That fishing also he was missing. And Metolius, it's a name of a river in Oregon, fishing for salmon on the Columbia at Bumping Lake in the Cascades. So now he is telling you, wherever I went, the haunting fear of the water followed me. Now he is telling whether he went into the river, in the water, either for fishing or for taking a round, everywhere that haunting fear, it followed him. It ruined my fishing trips. It kept him away from the trips of fishing, deprived me of the joy of canoeing. Deprived means to keep out of enjoyment. He was kept out of enjoyment of canoeing. Canoeing is the activity of traveling in water, boating and swimming. So here he is telling that whatever he did, that haunting fear of water, it followed him everywhere. Let it be during his fishing trips or during boating and swimming. The next paragraph, I used every way I knew to overcome this fear, but it held me firmly in its grip. Now he is telling he used all the possible ways just to overcome the fear, but that fear, it took a very strong hold on him and it was not ready to leave him. Finally, one October, I decided to get an instructor and learn to swim. He was also a person with firm determination. So instead of giving up, he decided to hire an instructor so that the instructor could teach him how to swim. I went to a pool and practiced 5 days a week, an hour each day. Now, under the supervision of the instructor, he went to the pool and practiced 5 days in a week and daily for an hour. The instructor put a belt around me. The instructor was also very careful regarding the narrator. He put a belt around the narrator. A rope attached to the belt went through a pulley that ran on an overhead cable, and a rope was attached to that belt. It was attached to a pulley that was connected to the overhead cable. He held on to the end of the rope and we went back and forth, and the instructor, he was holding one end of the rope and the narrator was moving back and forth in the water, back and forth across the pool, hour after hour, day after day, week after week. In this manner, week after week, he kept on in the river, in the pool, with the help of instructor. The instructor would hold the rope, that rope which would be attached to the belt with the help of a pulley to the belt of the narrator, and then he would be doing back and forth movement in water. On each trip across the pool, a bit of the panic seized me. Now he's telling you on his each and every trip across that pool, a bit of panic, it once again took hold of him. Each time the instructor relaxed his hold on the rope and I went under. Some of the old terror returned and my legs froze. Now here the narrator is telling that each time when the instructor would release his hold on the rope, then the narrator would go inside the water, and when he would go inside, his old terror, it would return back and his legs would freeze. It was 3 months before the tension began to slack. So it took him full 3 months to release his tension of drowning. Then he taught me to put my face under water and exhale, and to raise my nose and inhale. Now here the narrator is telling how the instructor made a swimmer out of Douglas. The instructor, for complete 3 months, he took hold of the rope of the narrator and allowed the narrator to move back and forth in the water. And the next step which the instructor taught him was how to put the face underwater and exhale inside, and then to raise his nose and then inhale. I repeated the exercise hundreds of times. Bit by bit, I shed part of the panic that seized me when my head went underwater. Now he's telling, he repeated this exercise hundreds of times, and bit by bit, he started shedding off the part of panic which had seized him when his head went under water. Next, he held me at the side of the pool and had me kick with my legs. And the third step which the instructor taught him was the instructor held him at the side of the pool and asked him to kick with his legs. For weeks, I did just that. At first, my legs refused to work, but they gradually relaxed and finally I could command them. When he was being asked to sit and kick with his legs in the water, the narrator, he kept on practicing for weeks. At first, his legs, they refused to work in water, but gradually they got relaxed and finally the narrator got command over them. Next paragraph, thus piece by piece he built a swimmer. Now here the narrator is appreciating the instructor that he built a swimmer out of Douglas in piece by piece. And when he had perfected each piece, he put them together into an integrated whole. In April, he said, now you can swim. Dive off and swim the length of the pool. Crawl stroke. Crawl stroke is a swimming stroke on which one lie flat on the water with face that is submerged inside the water. That is crawl stroke. So, we studied in the previous paragraph that he started to work with the instructor in the month of October, and then in the month of April the instructor told him that now he was free to swim anywhere he wished to. I did. The instructor was finished. He also tried to swim in the water, and at that point the work of the instructor was finished. But I was not finished. I still wondered if I would be terror stricken when I was alone in the pool. I tried it. I swam the length up and down. Here, the narrator is telling that the instructor's work was finished. He did his job. But the narrator's work was still not finished. He still wondered whether he would be terror-stricken when he would be all alone in the pool. So, he tried it. He swam the length of water up and down. Tiny vestiges of the old terror would return. Vestiges means traces of. So, small traces of the old fear would return back. But now, I could frown and say to that terror, trying to scare me? Well, here's to you. Look, and off I'd go for another length of the pool. Now here the narrator is telling that traces of the old terror, they would try to return back, but now the narrator was in the situation to frown and say to the terror that, are you trying to scare me? Well, this move is for you. Look. And then once again the narrator would take and into the pool the another length of the pool. Next paragraph. This went on until July, but I was still not satisfied. From April till July, his practice kept on going, but he was still not satisfied. I was not sure that all the terror had left, so I went to lake. Page number 29. Turn to page number 29. Wentworth in New Hampshire. Now here the narrator is telling, though he kept on practicing till the month of July, but still he was not satisfied. He was still not sure that all the terror had left him. So he went to Lake Wentworth in New Hampshire. He dived off a dock at Triggs Island and swam 2 miles across the lake to Stamp Act Island. Now, when he went to Wentworth Lake in New Hampshire, he dived inside to a dock at Triggs Island, and then he swam 2 miles across the lake and he reached to Stamp Act Island. I swam the crawl, beast stroke, side stroke and back stroke. Here the narrator is telling he tried each and every stroke and he was successful. Only once did the terror return. When I was in the middle of the lake, I put my face under and saw nothing but bottomless water. Now he is telling only once the terror which he was having previously, it returned to him. Now he is telling when he was in the middle of the lake and he had put his face under water, there he could see nothing except water. The old sensation returned in miniature. Miniature means in a very small part. To his old sensation of terror, it returned back, but in a very short form. I laughed and said, well, Mr. Terror, what do you think you can do to me? It fled and I swam on. So here the narrator is telling when in miniature only that old sensation, that old terror, it returned to him. At that, the narrator, he laughed and said, Mr. Terror, what do you think you can do to me? On hearing this, Mr. Terror, it fled away and the narrator, he swam on. Next paragraph. Yet, I had residual doubts. At my first opportunity, I hurried west, went up the Titan to Conrad Meadows, up the Conrad Creek Trail to Media Glacier, and camped in the high meadows by the side of Warm Lake. Now he's telling he was still having some leftover doubts. So, at his first opportunity, he hurried towards the west. He went up to the Titan. He went from Titan to Cornet Meadows and up on the Cornet Creek Trail to Meader Glaciers. He camped in the high meadow up at the side of Warm Lake. The next morning, I striped. Striped means he removed all the coverings, dived into the lake and swam across to the other shore and back. Now he's telling that very next morning, he removed all his covering, dived into the lake and swam across the lake, across the other shore, and once again he came back. Just as Doc Cochran used to do it. I shouted with joy. The Gilbert Peak returned the echo. I had conquered my fear of water. Now he's telling that very next morning, he removed all his covering and dived into the lake and swam across to the other shore and returned back. He did this just as Doc Cochran used to do it. There he shouted out with joy, and in return the Gilbert Peak also echoed. Now he had actually conquered his fear, a fear of water. The next paragraph. The experience had a deep meaning for me, as only those who have known stark terror and conquered it can appreciate. Now he's telling that experience had a very great meaning for the narrator. So only those who have faced the terror and then they have conquered it, they can only appreciate his effort. In death, there is peace. The narrator is telling that there is absolute peace in death. There is terror only in the fear of death. If the death comes, there is total peace. The terror is only in the fear of death. As Roosevelt knew when he said, all we have to fear is fear itself. So the President Roosevelt, he once told that all we have to fear is only to fear itself, from fear itself. Because I had experienced both the sensation of dying and the terror that fear of it can produce. The narrator is telling that he has experienced both. First, the sensation of dying, which he experienced in the YMCA pool when a very heavily built person threw him in the pool, and the terror that fear of it can produce. And he has also faced the terror that fear of something can produce. The will to live somehow grew in intensity. But the winners are always those who have strong willpower to survive. At last, I felt released, free to walk the trails. Trails means ways. And climb the peaks and to brush aside fear. Now he's telling ki at last, he felt released, free to walk any way and to climb any peak and to brush aside his fear. So students, that's it that we studied. Now, a few years later, fear of water seized him. Once again, the fear of water seized him. Unpleasant experience of the pool always terrorized him. Joy of fishing, canoeing, boating, swimming, marred by fear. Haunting fear of the water followed him everywhere. Every way to overcome the fear was failing. So he decided to overcome this fear. He engaged an instructor in October to learn to swim. A rope attached to a belt put around him. This was the work of the instructor. The rope went through a pulley that ran on an overhead cable. So, with the help of the pulley, he went to and fro in the pool. He practiced this move for several weeks. Douglas became a swimmer. After 3 months' practice, fear started fading away. He learned to keep his face underwater and exhale, and to raise his nose and inhale. Gradually, he started shedding part of the panic. Initially, legs were stiff, but gradually they got relaxed. In the month of April, the instructor told him that he could swim now. He could dive off and swim the length of the pool. Gradually, he became a swimmer. His efforts were still continued. He tried to swim while alone in the pool. He started shedding off tear. So, he went to Lake Wentworth. He swam 2 miles across the lake successfully and tried crawl, breaststroke, side stroke and backstroke. Only once terror did return, but he overcame it. Then he went to Warm Lake to test his confidence. He dived and swam across the warm lake. Back from the other shore, he came back from the other shore. He succeeded in his experiment. In this way, he conquered his fear of water. A great truth dawned upon him. Now here, the narrator is telling that how a great truth came upon him. He is telling that there is absolute peace in death. Terror is there only in the fear of death. He has experienced both the sensation of dying and the terror that fear of it could produce. So, this increased his will to live. I hope, dear students, you all have understood it. If you find any problem, please feel free to ask. Thank you.